Welcome to the Resilient Recruiter Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Whitby, and today we're joined by Paul Press. Paul is the managing partner of Press & Associates. He founded the firm in 2016 with the goal of building the #1 search firm, hiring technology talent for private equity firms and their portfolio companies. Since their inception, Paul has built long-lasting partnerships with globally renowned private equity firms, helping them make key hires in their value creation team and numerous C-suite appointments across portfolio companies, all within the technology function. Paul, welcome. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mark. Pleasure to be here.
All right. So, and by the way, congrats on becoming a new father. That's the biggest news, I think, right? That's amazing.
Yeah, we're 4 weeks into it, so still early days, but absolutely loving it.
Amazing. And are you getting any sleep?
Hit or miss. We've had a few witching hours, which have been pretty interesting, but fortunately, we're in Canada, so we have a very nice maternity leave. My wife's taking 12 months off, and I don't know why, but she's volunteered to do the night shift, so it's been very appreciative for me because I can get back into the swing of things at work. I took a week off, so sleep's not been too bad.
Wow, you're lucky then, and nothing prepares you for this, right? Like
No.
You kind of you do the classes, the antenatal classes, and you obviously read, and you have friends who've had families and stuff, but like it is still a kind of shock to the system for sure. But it's also so euphoric that it kind of, you don't quite feel it initially. But so congratulations, man! I'm really, really happy for you.
Thank you.
It's the best thing ever. And
yeah, it really is.
So listen, I know you're based in Canada, but you don't have a Canadian accent. Where are you from originally?
Yeah, so originally from Nottingham in the UK. So I was born and raised there. And I've been in North America for the past 10 and a half years, 11 years now. Came here in end of 2013. So I originally came across to set up Hayes' oil and gas business unit out of Calgary. My first, port in North America, it was almost identical to the cool running scene. The guy who hired me very much sold it as Calgary, blue skies all the time, most sunshine hours, and coming from the UK, that was very appealing. But stepping out the airport into minus 25 was a bit of a shock to the system and a detail that you missed out. But there you go, 10 years later, still here.
Amazing. Are you still in Calgary?
Yep, still in Calgary, yeah.
Okay, wow, that is wow, yeah, that's a difference. All right. So my business partner, Leanne, is in Nottingham. And we'll talk about Calgary and that move. How did you initially get into recruiting?
It was just by chance, kind of fell into it. I finished up university in Leeds in 2010, and we're kind of just coming out of that recession. And I was inundated with like recruiters getting in touch with me to hire me for kind of graduate programs and things like that. And after going on probably 3 or 4 interviews, one recruiter asked me, how about a job in search? So never heard of it before, didn't have really any details in it, started interviewing with those guys. Didn't actually get that job that I originally got approached for, but then started actively looking at recruitment companies, seeing the OTEs that they were claiming, and thought it was a very interesting route, kind of coming out of university, being responsible for how much you could earn in your first year was very appealing, and having a base salary. So there was a bit of comfort there. So I thought, why not give it a go?
Fantastic. All right. And so then you ended up in Calgary, obviously missold as far as the climate is concerned, but tell me about launching your own firm, because I think that's since 2016 you've been on that journey. So 8 years now. What inspired you to do that?
So I was always interested in setting up my own firm, and I was very conscious of that throughout my recruiting career. So on the lead up to that, it was always a aspiration for me. My dad had his own business, so I always had that kind of ingrained in the DNA. But throughout my recruitment career, I really wanted to kind of guide it towards that point. And essentially, it was just the right timing. I had managed to get really good training from ATA from my first venture into recruitment. I then worked at McKinnon Bruce and Leeds, which was kind of like a startup. I was the second person except for the founder. So got the flavor of a boutique startup search firm. Then got kind of my Hayes experience, a global recruitment firm, learned how they operate, kind of processes, standard operating procedures, best practices, and so on. And then it just so happened that one of my good friends, his wife was the head of HR for a big oil company, and she needed someone to come in on a consulting basis. And at that point, I had my kind of big company, small company, and this was kind of the final piece of let's see the inner workings of a company and how their recruitment processes are, how to partner with the leadership team, and kind of what it was from the client side of the table. So I took that on as a 2-month consulting project, ended up being 12 months, but that was a really nice kind of stepping stone into setting my own business up and really kind of completing all sides of the table on perspective in search. So it was just a matter of good timing, but very much kind of a directed career towards that.
Interesting. I forgot that part of your experience, Paul. So what were your big takeaways from that experience of working in-house that you've been able to apply once you've gone agency side, again, setting up your own search practice?
It was an interesting experience because I think there's a lot of similarities in that the process and so on, but instead of your clients being external companies who you've got to kind of nurture, build relationships with, and so on, and kind of sell to them, you've already got that, I suppose, sell side done, and you're kind of an internal resource for them. So it was really interesting putting the business development piece to one side and really focusing on building those relationships internally. You still have to prove yourself, kind of the value that you add, that you're good at what you do. You can find good talent in a timely fashion. But it was more of interesting to see like managing the dynamics within the organization, the different personalities, how they view the human resources function was very interesting. Some of them were very much a close-knit partnership. Others were, I'm going to do everything I can to skirt around the HR process and go through my own network and my own interview process. So it was really interesting kind of putting BD to one side and just be purely focused on the relationship building and really understanding the dynamics within the business.
And then how have you been able to use that knowledge of the inner workings of the client side to your advantage as a external partner?
Yeah, I would say it's really helped with patience for one, because you don't know what's going on behind the curtain with your clients a lot of the time. So when you're kind of trying to get a deal over the line, you've pitched, you're waiting for a decision. From a external perspective, you're thinking, what's going on? Are they talking to other search firms? Are they putting this on hold? There's a million things that runs through your mind when you're doing it from an external standpoint. But when you're internal, you've got all their kind of processes to go through, approvals, budgets, etc. You've got kind of projects that come up randomly that take priorities. So it has really helped with communication style and the approach of partnering with your clients and being appreciative that hiring isn't the only thing they've got going on. They've got a million other things, and you've just got to be there as someone to support, understand, and kind of tailor your approach to help them as best as possible. You want to be someone who takes as much kind of heavy lifting off their plate and makes it easy for them. So I think from a patience and understanding perspective, that's really helped. And also, I think a lot of people are quite transactional with search work, and there's always a reason behind the search going on, kind of a big transformation happening, a big project going on. At the oil company I was working with, there was kind of drilling programs they were getting on with. So it helps to understand kind of the decision making behind what leads up to this search and why they're looking for this person. So I think that always helps as well versus, hey, I'm looking for someone with 10 years experience and this degree. It's more of, okay, what's the bigger picture? What's going on with the business? So I think that kind of look behind the curtains of the kind of inner workings of the business really helped kind of get a more big picture understanding as well.
Absolutely. That is key. That's really, really important. If you understand the bigger picture and why they're making this hire, what the context is, what the project or the transformation is, what they're trying to achieve, what problems they're trying to solve, then that is hugely valuable. Did you have external recruiters selling to you when you were working for the oil company?
Yep, there was quite a few.
What were your observations from that in terms of like companies that maybe did it well, companies that like really did it poorly, or either from the sales side or the delivery side? What did you learn from watching how others operated and interacted with you?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is the ones who took the time to personalize, to make a very human approach and connection, who were very empathetic. Those were the ones that really stood out. It's amazing how transparent people's approaches are, and how easy it is to tell kind of when there's a email sequencing campaign going on with an email coming out to you every kind of 2 or 3 days saying, hey, just following up on this, or hey, I've just seen this search. So it is very easy to tell kind of what's being automated, what's an actual human touch, and who are people that want to be in it for the long run versus, hey, I've got my monthly targets to hit. I've seen you've been advertising for this. Let me fling a load of resumes over at you. No terms of business in place or anything like that. Just trying to get a quick fee in. So you can really tell clearly what people's intentions are. So I would say the approach really stood out from a few recruiters that were very kind of respectful, very appreciative of my role and me coming from a search background and being there very much to help me throughout the process versus trying to get a quick win. So those things were really interesting to see.
Okay, interesting. And then obviously your mindset when you're in that role is you want to try and deliver most of it yourself. So what were the circumstances or situations where you would entertain working with a third-party recruiter? And then what, apart from what you've already said, what did they need to do in order to win the business?
There were a few different areas that I did get help. First of all, there was a senior search that was already ongoing when I joined the business. So we'd already retained a firm. So I was working in partnership with them. So some relationships were mandatory, so to speak. Others, the ones that I had the decision to engage or not, I always took a stab at the search role first. At the end of the day, it was my role and responsibility to deliver, and that's what they're paying me for. But I would consider a search firm for a couple of reasons. First of all, if I just had too many searches on at one time, the volume was too heavy, I would systematically kind of rank them on difficulty level, also rank it to kind of my prior experience and where I had the network and the kind of knowledge to deliver on those searches. And then I would outsource any searches that maybe weren't in my kind of sweet spot. So that would be one area that would be. And the other area would be when search firms approach me directly about a specific search. And when I do a bit of research into them, a bit of digging into them, they are true experts in that space. They're not just kind of a generalist. They're not just trying to kind of do some generic business development through kind of email automation or anything like that I mentioned earlier. They're very much, hey, we specialize purely in this space. We've done 4 searches in the last few months in that space. We've got a great network. Saw you looking to hire. Let's chat and see how we could help. So I would prefer the people who are very niche and focused in one area versus the generalist. So that would be another reason why I would kind of entertain external parties. But I would say the difficulty in the volume side were definitely 2 key areas that I would kind of consistently calibrate on to see if I needed to engage anyone. But there were a lot of good firms that were reaching out to me kind of consistently. So I did have quite a good selection of them.
It's interesting because what you're saying about niche and being an expert is exactly what we teach our coaching clients. Is you want to be that niche market expert for many reasons, including what you just shared, and the kind of verbiage you shared, that was a good pitch. And then on the volume side, how much volume does it start getting too much? Because some of our clients are using AI to one of the signals that they're looking for in terms of which companies to approach. One interesting one that was suggested by one of our clients is if there's more than 10 open roles for any one internal recruiting partner, it was a kind of signal to them that, hey, it might be worth approaching this company to see if they need help. But does that sound about right to you? Or how much volume would be too much that suggests that the growth is exceeding the capacity of the internal team?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I was in this role kind of 7-8 years ago now. So I think there's a lot of technology now that can really help become more efficient with your time. I really kind of looked at a few areas of how senior the role was, because that usually was more time intensive, more interview stages, more kind of cats to herd internally. So depending on the seniority and also the approach to filling that search as well. So what I mean by approach is when you've got your junior level roles, sometimes those are the ones that take too much time because you're putting an advert out there, you're getting hundreds, if not thousands of resumes coming through. And back then we were actually implementing an ATS, so we didn't have any kind of systems or keywords or anything like that. We could screen candidates out really quickly. So it was really kind of calibrating kind of the seniority level of the searches, the amount of resumes flowing through. And I usually focus on more kind of mid-level, senior level searches. So I try and keep the talent pool very tight. So when I was doing that role, I was probably handling, I think at any time, 15 to 20 open recs at any given time across a broad range of areas. And I'd say probably 4 or 5 of them I'll be getting external help with. So maybe 15 on average would be roughly kind of the workload across mainly individual contributors, but senior individual contributors, kind of 10 to 15 years experience, and then a few management, a few director type level roles.
Okay, interesting. Thanks for sharing. That's good to get the insider perspective, right? Because it's usually like this adversarial relationship where like, oh, great, I have to deal with Paul Press, the internal, talent guy. And so almost breaking down those walls and making that relationship more effective. So let's move on. Why did you decide to go into PE specifically as your niche?
Yeah, it was probably a 2-year, maybe 3-year journey. My background had always been quite heavy industrial, oil and gas, construction type businesses. And I started to get into more senior level construction work at the time of setting up my business. And at that time, coincidentally, I met my now wife, and she is an accountant over at PwC. And we're getting chatting on how much partners make at the big 4 consulting firms. I was like, wow, this would be great to get into. These guys make a lot of money. The fees would be big. So I started looking into the consulting world. And the running theme that I found was if you're in audit and insurance, you're probably looking to move to kind of a big Fortune 500 company at some point and become a CFO. So looked into that market a little bit. And then I found out the management consulting side, those guys got paid even more. So I was very curious about that. And those guys were looking at 2 paths, either moving into a Fortune 500 as a CEO, COO, chief strategy officer, or a lot of them were heavily involved in the private equity space, which I hadn't really had much knowledge of previously. So essentially I found a few really good candidates, marketed them out to private equity firms. And that's where the conversation started to happen. And it was in and around when COVID was happening. So a lot of PE firms were looking at and a lot of firms in general were looking at digital transformation. Everyone was shifting to the cloud so people could work from home. And the private equity space really appealed to me because it was very entrepreneurial, very value creation focused. The people also resonated with me in that they're very direct. They had zero time for BS. They just got to the point. It was very black and white. There was no gray areas. So it was very easy to know where you stand, know if they liked you, know if they didn't like you. So I really liked that environment. And then that combined with COVID happening, everyone kind of transitioning to cloud and kind of working from home and these big digital transformations, the technology side just really appealed to me. I knew it was something that was going to be the future of most businesses. I think most businesses now, even if they're manufacturing widgets, they say we're a technology company that manufactures widgets, which instead of kind of a manufacturing company. So I always knew technology would be the space to be. So it just all kind of coincidentally came together in and around kind of late 2020, early 2021.
Fantastic. So look, there's a few headlines that we want to be sure to hit today while we've got this time together, because you've done some really interesting things and you have really exciting things happening even as we speak. So one of the key things I definitely wanted to pick your brains about is winning multi-hire team build projects. Could you share maybe an example of one of those that you've won and you know how you won that sort of business? Because of course, making placements one at a time is great, and especially if the fee size is significant, which I know in some of your fees have been very sizable. But of course, it's even more exciting to build a whole team, right? So could you tell me a little bit about how you have won and delivered on those sorts of projects?
I would say it kind of goes back to kind of lessons learned when I went in-house and was building those relationships and understanding kind of the big picture behind those hires and what those companies were trying to achieve. And that combined with the private equity space really kind of mesh well together. So private equity firms, they usually buy companies because they can see a lot of potential in them, whether it's a turnaround, whether it's a transformation, a period of rapid growth. So they're always looking for good deals, but also to take them through a journey. And those two things combined really kind of meshed well for the multi-hire campaigns because when I was working in kind of C-suite searches, placing kind of chief information officers, chief technology officers, through the interview process, you learn about the transformation or the initiatives that they're going to be tasked with. There's usually a 3-year or 5-year period where they need to kind of achieve certain results, usually to hit EBITDA targets. So you learn more about the journey that they're going to go through after they get hired. And that really interested me in that when they get into the seat, it's kind of like okay, so now what's next? We've got to build relationships with HR. We've got to find a search vendor to help with certain specific roles. We've got to figure out a hiring strategy and so on. And through building relationships with these C-suite execs, they got to know me, our process, how we treat candidates. And just so happenstance, a lot of them started to come to us and saying, hey, really enjoyed the process. As you know, this is what I'm here to do. This is what I'm looking to achieve. Could you help with some kind of building out these teams here? So the opportunity kind of presented itself to us, and we really built off the back of that. And it's a really enjoyable project because you get to build those long-term relationships with the client that you originally did business development with the candidate that you place into the role, and then you also help kind of that candidate achieve what they're looking to do, and therefore the client looking to do in the long term by helping them build the team out. So it was a really kind of nice full picture, which kind of was presented by itself. It wasn't an area that I was ever kind of focused on getting involved with. I was always excited to do the C-suite searches and go after the big fees, but it's probably equally, if not more lucrative, to get those multi-hire campaigns underneath them.
So let me just make sure I understand it correctly. So it's basically as a result of placing a key executive in the first place, and then that creates a potential opportunity to then build out the team underneath him. Is that the idea?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, great. And then how do you sort of pitch and price that kind of thing? Is it just as simple as, well, this is going to be, it's 5 people times whatever fee, or are you actually taking that project as, almost one giant search with a retainer up front and then multiple, like, how are you structuring that?
So it does vary depending on the company and depending on the size of the organization. Sometimes you've got to sign up to their terms of business. It's just this is how we operate with vendors, and either accept it or we'll find someone else. So there's been that situation. And then when we've had a bit more control of the commercials, it really does vary. We did I think it was a 15 or 16 person team build out for a big pharmaceutical company, and they retained us on every single individual role. So it worked in the traditional retainer value where you take the total cash compensation, you charge I think it was a 30% fee, and then you build it into your kind of 3 milestones of the retainer after 30 days and after 60 days. So that was one example.
Just so I understand, so you're being retained for all 16 roles, and so the retainer is just whatever is a third of what the total compensation for those 16 people would be?
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Okay. Fantastic. That's awesome. And then what have you learned from doing those kinds of projects, and in terms of how to make it work, and what are the pitfalls?
It's certainly a communication game. There's in multi-hire campaigns, there's usually multiple hiring managers. So you got to figure out kind of each individual style of communication, building relationships with those people. You obviously have the functional head that you've probably placed previously, so you've always got that relationship to leverage. But I find it's very much a communication game, building relationships, being very transparent and direct, so there's no kind of area of confusion there, because you've got 16 searches, so it's 16 times as hard as one, and you've got to kind of keep all those plates spinning at the same time. So I think communication is huge. If you can't do that, you're not going to be able to successfully deliver. The second is project management. Making sure you're implementing kind of your standard procedures in terms of market mapping, talent pipelining, going through your own internal processes in the search firm's process of kind of, we do a initial pre-screen for 15 to 20 minutes, then we'll do a competency-based deep dive. So it's really having that well-structured process from a search firm perspective that you can easily track and manage. And I find obviously ATSs or CRMs have been a really key tool for that. I think if you're going just off spreadsheets, it may be difficult to track. So I think having the right tools for that project management piece is key. And I'll say those two are the main areas. I think the actual hiring piece, finding the right talent, isn't the difficult part of it. It's really just engaging with all the stakeholders, making sure everything's moving in the right direction. If you do need to pivot or if something's changed, being completely transparent with it and saying, okay, we're not looking for this anymore, we're looking for that. Changing, understanding why that's happening, and just being very versatile in your approach. I think those areas, the softer skills, are very important, because the hard skills of doing a search is pretty straightforward in terms of your process, the questions you ask, and so on. It's that softer side that we really focus in on.
Yeah, no, I can totally see that. So assuming you're the relationship holder and you're doing the stakeholder management, the communication, the project management, what's the team that you've built behind you in order to, because I'm assuming you're not filling all those 16 roles yourself.
No. So yeah, I purely do the client relationship. So I'm pretty hands-off. My role would be winning the search work, doing the kickoff meetings, so getting all key stakeholders there, getting my team who's going to be involved in the project and aligning expectations on process, what we're looking for, and so on. And then all I would do is join the weekly or bi-weekly steering meetings where we have a project update with the client, see how things are tracking. As I mentioned before, kind of if we need to change anything, what we need to change. I would have maybe ad hoc meetings with the C-suite to get the feedback of kind of just what the expectations were, how close to them we're hitting, and if we need to change anything in our approach or caliber of candidates. But the rest of it, the whole, I'd say the candidate journey, is the team behind me. And we have a great guy, Ben, as our head of search, who really project manages the whole candidate journey. We have another lady, Jen, who's absolutely awesome as well. And she manages the candidate journey underneath Ben. And then what we've also done is we've utilized a really awesome company. I don't know if you come across them, called Ally, the Ally Venture. This is a company run by Greg Smidian, and essentially they do all your talent pipelining, market mapping. They will produce kind of a short list of benchmark candidates for you. They can really tailor it to whatever you need, but we get them to provide a short list of 10 candidates for each search. We'll go and kind of benchmark them, saying, we like this, we don't like that, find more of these, find less of those. And then they'll go out and map out the entire market for you. So they really take a lot of the heavy lifting off our plates and go, here's your talent pipeline, here's your market mapping. This, I don't know, 60 candidates or 100 candidates will be suitable for this search. It's all in Excel. They can put it into kind of your LinkedIn projects. They can put it into your CRM. So we've outsourced a lot of the heavy lifting so that we can be purely focused on the more judgmental side of things, kind of the interview process, screening against the competencies that we're looking for. So that's essentially how we break it down. And Ben and Jen on the search side do everything from candidate journey, from concept all the way through to presenting candidates in the steering meetings, managing the interview processes, anything candidate related. I really try and kind of put onto those guys' plates so we can really specialize in our, I suppose, individual roles.
Amazing. Okay, interesting. I didn't realize. So you've got like a core team of highly competent people managing the candidate delivery from the point of view of the actual recruiting process, interviewing, selecting, and then presenting to the client. But the actual research part, you're outsourcing to another company, and that allows you to focus on what you guys do best, which is the high touch part. So that's really interesting. Are there any other key team members that you have in-house who are part of the overall effort?
I don't think so, no. It's just we really split it into that 180 model of me being on the BD side and then kind of the candidate journey piece. So those are the two real key components. And I think the general aim of what I'm trying to do is essentially streamline and make the process as efficient as possible. I know our clients have a ton of other things on their plates, so really want to make sure their life is easy, but also we're handling multi-hire projects, we're hiring C-suite engagements, so it's very kind of white glove service, and I want to make sure that anything that can be outsourced, anything that can be automated without losing quality and control, we'll do that, just so that our kind of individual experts can be really focused in on the quality of doing their role and not having to kind of put decks together or kind of fill out spreadsheets or do kind of research. So I'm really trying to make everyone as an expert in their domain and then outsource anything that can be outsourced without losing quality.
Wow. So you've really got a lean and mean operation here. I'm amazed that with the three of you, you're able to manage such a massive project. That's impressive. What are the risks or the downsides of handling that size of a project?
I think the risks are having too much volume, but I think that can be mitigated with kind of what I was mentioning earlier with the communication style and the project management piece. Because a lot of the times you do get a lot of clients that go, hey, we need all these people, we need them yesterday, here are the job descriptions, off you go. And those are the clients that we don't want to work with or have a bit more time to kind of coach them and really kind of get to understand actually where their priorities are. So there's one project that we just won with a large PE backer. They're doing a huge transition to cloud, and they essentially said, I think it was 42 roles total that they wanted us to look at. And after a few weeks of kind of benchmarking and understanding expectations and so on, we ended up going, okay, here are the 5 that we'll start off with. They're the most senior level professionals. Let's focus purely on them, getting the right hires in, and then we'll help them deliver kind of the hiring underneath them for their individual contributors and their teams. So we would stagnate it to make sure that, first of all, it was done right. All the right stakeholders were involved. Everyone was aligned with expectations. And then secondly, not to kind of overwhelm us with the volume of work and possibly make mistakes or not get the right sort of person in for the roles. Maybe hire someone in who's too junior, and then a manager comes in and says, hey, I want someone else. So we really do a lot of expectation managing to make sure that we're not taking on too much ourselves, but also we're looking kind of 2-3 steps down the line and going, okay, if we hire in someone like this, what will happen to this role? Or if you hire this person, what would happen to that role? So the risks are essentially not having that thorough kickoff meeting and understanding where they're trying to get to, what their priorities are, and really diving deep into the kind of individual motivations of the hiring managers and what they're looking to achieve individually and how that kind of builds into the big picture. Yeah,
absolutely. I can see the complexity of this, because those kind of conversations that you're describing are, this is what makes an excellent recruiter, right? And in fact, for listeners who are interested, we have a job order scorecard that we share with our clients. Happy to share it with any listeners. Just let us know you want it, and we'll send it over to you. But it's what boggles my mind with what you're describing is that you're doing that across multiple stakeholders who all have different priorities, and you're having to manage multiple people, right, and their expectations, and have these kind of negotiations of what is a realistic profile or criteria for us to go and go after and so on. And you're having that with multiple people. I love how you've staged that process with this recent project that you've won, because that's really what we should be able to do as partners, right? Is not just say, oh, sure, we can fill 42 jobs for you, but actually to consult with them and negotiate and tell them, like, this is how you need to roll out this hiring process in order for, it to be effective. And let's start with these 5. These are the 5 most important roles. And then, we'll tackle the next tranche after that. So, that makes total sense. This is amazing, Paul. Tell me, I have to hear the story of the $450K fee, because I know that's one of your biggest ever fees. How did that take place? Because I think that one fee is more than most recruiters bill in a year across multiple placements. So tell me that story.
Yeah, certainly. So I'm a big lover of marketing out candidates. Probably 80% of the work that we do is traditional retained search, whether that's individual search or a multi-hire campaign. But the other 20% is basically almost what gets that other 80%. So I'm a big fan of silver medalists in searches, the people who don't necessarily get the job, but they're absolutely awesome people, add tons of value. They're looking for the next opportunity. And I really like helping the individuals to find interesting options that they may have not considered previously. So I absolutely love, I try and market out candidates every single day. I've got my own kind of KPI of making 5 introductions each day. So I'm always kind of connecting people, saying, hey, have you met this person? So absolutely love it. And essentially, this person who I marketed out was the first person I marketed out into the private equity space. And this person was a big kind of Fortune 500 chief information officer, had done a load of M&A activity, which obviously private equity firms love. They had some great brands on their profile. They were actively looking for their next opportunity, and they were kind of considering two pathways, either another Fortune 500 or private equity. So I started marketing this candidate out to private equity firms because that was my area of expertise. And we got some conversations going, and off the back of that, two PE firms said, hey, I'm looking for a chief information officer, and the other one was looking for a chief technology officer, both within the value creation team. Now, the value creation team is a team that sits at the fund level, so they work for the private equity firm, and they look across the entirety of the portfolio, and they usually have either a functional expertise or kind of an industry expertise. So these people will be kind of ex-C-suite of kind of multi-billion-dollar organizations, and they'll come in, bring their expertise and advise on how to create value throughout the portfolio. So this person, from marketing them out, opened up these two searches, and the chief technology officer search with a big PE firm out of New York was the one that ended up with the $450K fee. So from that candidate, essentially what we did was we benchmarked that profile against their expectations. We went into our process of how we engage with PE firms, case studies, what our process would look like, commercials. And from that point, they realized how good that original candidate was. Although not right for the opportunity, they said, hey, let's engage on this search. So the person that they ended up hiring had a 7-figure cash comp. They got equity and I think called carried interest on top, which is equity in the funds that they raise. And we had, I think it was a 30% fee with that from the retainer, and the total fee ended up being $450, which was, it was a 6-7 month process. It was a big search. But all off the back of marketing candidates out. So I always try and instill that into my daily routine of connecting people, at least 5 people a day, because you never know what may come from it.
I love that. Congratulations, by the way, Paul. That's a great result. And so I love this KPI of make 5 introductions a day. So we call it MPC marketing, most placeable candidate. I think that term comes from MRI somewhere along the line. But the concept is familiar to all recruiters, right? You are proactively representing a candidate. It's, instead of trying to fill a search, you're trying to make an introduction on behalf of an individual that you think is, particularly strong. And so what I love about this is a couple of things. Number one, sometimes recruiters tell me you can't, like, MPC marketing doesn't work for executive search, and which obviously is wrong. You prove it every day. So what would you say to, like, what's your counter argument to that? Because people are like, well, I'm not quite sure what the mindset is, but I think the idea is that if you present a candidate proactively and they want to hire your candidate, then, that's not likely to lead into a search, but obviously it did in your case. What's your mindset around MPC marketing? Why do you think it's a valuable strategy even for executive search?
It's a strategy that gets deployed by mostly contingent recruiters. And I think there's a preconception, and it's true that when a company is looking for a C-suite exec, they're going to go and engage with a Korn Ferry or a Hydrix or whoever it may be. It's a rigorous process. They've got to get board buy-in and all this stuff. So there's a lot of kind of pre-work that goes into it. And realistically, if you market out a candidate, the most likely response is going to be, hey, we're actually engaged with this search firm. We forward the resume. Thank you for sending it across. We don't need your services. And a lot of companies do view that as kind of a contingent strategy. So I think you're kind of going up against it to start off with. But if you're truly like offering good value, they're always going to remember that. They're always going to be open to conversations, and it's about doing it consistently. I think if you do it as a flash in the pan, these guys are extremely busy. Their calendars are booked up for months in advance. Like, they may not see the first email that comes through, but if you're consistently showing them that you add value and that you're connected to people who essentially make their life easier, they're going to want to speak to you at some point. So I don't think the marketing out kind of NPCs, marketing out candidates, should be viewed as my sole goal is to get this person a job. It should be purely around, I want to help this person get in the circles that they want to find new opportunities in. I want to kind of connect some dots for them, expand their network, because you never know what may happen in the future. And the goal is to add value. And you'll quickly find out the companies that you can work with, the companies that you can't work with. And it's just as important to find the companies that you don't work with, because they're going to be the ones that waste your time, or they're going to be the ones that hide behind your back and then you're fighting for fees over, or whatever it may be. The goal of it is to show the clients that you want to work with how valuable your network is, how proactive you are, how engaged you are with helping both candidates and clients, and then good things will come off the back of it, whether it's placing them or whether it's other searches that you get engaged on, or whether it's just a introductory conversation to learn more about their business, how they interact with search firms, and just purely getting on their radar. So I think the original goal and mindset should be shifted, if you're going to mark out candidates, to how to build relationships, how to get your foot in the door, not, okay, let's just set up as many interviews for this candidate as possible and hopefully they get placed. I think it's more of the long-term relationship game that shifts the way that you position the candidate, shifts the way that you follow up with them, shifts the whole approach and communication style. So I think I'd say, yeah, 80+% of the work that we do on a retained basis is through marketing candidates out, and the other 20% is probably through referrals, which probably started off with marketing candidates out. So it's one of our key strategies, definitely.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. I agree 100%. It's a different mindset. It's realizing, well, number one, the goal is not to place the candidate. That it would be a bonus if that happens. But the goal is primarily to get your foot in the door, to start a conversation, demonstrate the caliber of your network and the people that you represent, come to them with interesting ideas, that could bring value to their business, whether or not the timing is right for them to take you up on that particular candidate. That's just hit or miss, right? That's going to be completely luck. But once in a while that will happen. And then in the meantime, you're still having good conversations with potential clients. But also, and it's something you mentioned a moment ago, half of the value of the strategy, if not more than half, is the relationship you're building with that candidate, right? Who themselves is a senior hiring manager. So they're going to appreciate that you've been proactive and trying to bring value to them and help them make introductions, which even if it doesn't result in them getting a job, it cements your relationship with that individual so that when they do land, that can be a way into those companies as well, right?
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. And I think also if you try to get into like the senior leadership search work, big search firms like Korn Ferry and all those guys, they don't do this work at all. They are all inbound. Hey, we've got the search. We're going to retain you. Great. They're very transactional and understandably so. But this is a really good way to differentiate. This is a really good way, as you said, to build relationships with senior level professionals who don't get this service anywhere else. They don't have anyone really caring about their career to date. Everyone cares about filling the role with the clients and getting paid with the clients. So if you can show them some good value, connecting them to people who they haven't originally kind of been in touch with, they're going to always look back and go, thank you so much. Like, that was great. Even 4 or 5 years down the line, I met this person again and they offered me a job, or I actually hired them and they're working for me now. They're always appreciative of the network, and the ones who aren't, you don't necessarily need to work with. So it's about finding out kind of who you want to work with, who you don't want to, and who actually values the service.
Definitely. Let me throw a couple of curveballs at you, Paul. So, because these are the kinds of issues that you come up against when you're doing NPC marketing. So first of all, when you're doing NPC marketing, is that by phone? Is it email, or is it a combination? How are you making those introductions?
Yep. So it's kind of your typical sales outreach. So you need at least 10 to 12 touch points because often these people are very busy. Often you kind of put these touch points into a 1 week or 2 week time span where people could just be on vacation or whatever it may be. So you got to put a pretty rigorous strategy in place of 10 to 12 touch points over probably a month or so. And I would approach it across every type of medium of communication. So email, phoning them, LinkedIn, texting if you've got their cell number, you've got a good relationship with them. We've just started to do video outreach. So that's been really interesting to see kind of how people engage with that. So you really got to figure out with how they like to communicate, and everyone's different. Some people like text, some people like WhatsApp, some people like phone calls. So you want to have a 10 to 12 stage process that covers all those areas to make sure that you're kind of talking their language to them. So that's how I would do it over a 3 to 4 week period.
Love it. It's so interesting because coincidentally, I mean, we must be reading or learning from the same places, because we teach our clients, we have a client acquisition blueprint, and it's 12 touches in 21 days, basically. And so, which is 3 weeks, 12 touches. And as you say, it's multi-channel because you don't know, is it going to be the phone call, the text message, the WhatsApp, the video, the LinkedIn Connect, like what is going to break through and actually get their attention and, get them to a conversation. So you need to do them all, right? And what tool are you using to manage or orchestrate these campaigns, Paul?
Mm-hmm. So we use Loxo. That's our kind of CRM. Absolutely love it. I think it's a great platform. So we use that to kind of centralize everything and monitor the outreach. But then we're also using a few different platforms to help with it as well. So there's a platform called Dripify we use, which is, you've heard of it. So the LinkedIn kind of outreach, that's been incredible. Just building out networks and reaching new people in the background. And then, phoning and texting.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, Loxo is popular in our community as a CRM, and then Dripify we use as a business, and a lot of our clients use it as well. So, yeah, fantastic. Really good to get that insider insight into how you run those campaigns. So when you say 5 per day, does that mean one candidate to like you're finding 5 target companies, or is it just 5 touch points? Like, what does that metric mean?
Mm-hmm. It's 5 introductions. So it's 5, hey, client A, you should meet candidate B. Here's their resume. I think they'll add a lot of value to your business. If they go, actually, I'd love to meet them. Obviously, you would have the candidate's pre-approval that they're interested in that company and the reasons why. You wouldn't do it without anyone's kind of approval. So once you get the candidate's approval, go out to those specific companies and say, hey, I think this candidate could be of interest to you. Not sure if you're hiring this area, but here's their background. Here's where they add value. Would you be open to connecting with them? And it's 5 of those kind of outreaches to them.
Explain this to me like I'm a, first grader. So is this, you're basically adding 5 new target companies to this 12 touch sequence that you mentioned?
So the 12 touch sequence will be running in the background anyways. That will be separate to it. So this will be kind of your general outreach, not with a resume. Very much, hey, I've got a chief information officer with XYZ experience. Would you be interested? This would be more of candidates who have specifically said, this company is of interest. Feel free to introduce me to your contact. You would have said, hey, I know John Smith at this company. Do you think a conversation would be of interest to you, to the candidate? Then that candidate would say yes. And then you'll go make those 5 touch points. Say, hey, this candidate's interested in your organization. Would you be open to meet? And it's usually with people that you have very warm relationships with. You wouldn't do this as a cold relationship.
I see. Okay, got it. Okay, that makes sense. So the campaigns are running in the background anyway, but it's you are personally reaching out to a targeted list of people you already know on behalf of your candidate 5 times a day.
Yeah, yeah. I've just a few months ago, I've only started implementing this recently, but a few months ago, I read How Clients Buy, I think it's called. And they've got a concept in there that you only need to know 200 people and they will give you enough work for your lifetime if you build good relationships with those 200 people. So I'm building out, I thought I knew 200 people that could fit into that. I think I'm still building it out. I think I'm about 60 or 70 in. But those are the people that are very warm relationships. And when I hear of good people that are relevant to any of those 70, 75 people, those are the ones that I'm doing 5 a day touch points with marketing candidates out. So it's a really interesting concept, but it's been very warmly received. People who you've got warm relationships with and that you enjoy working with very much are open to those sorts of touch points.
Okay. Wow. That's interesting, Paul. I'll check that book out. Do you know the author?
Tom McMakin, this one.
Okay. I'll check that out. Thank you. And we'll put it in the show notes as well. If you're listening and you can't jot that down right now. Fantastic. And so, listen, I've saved this till last because I wasn't sure how much you'd be able to say, but you've got some exciting news at Press and Associates. Can you share what's happening?
Yeah, as of today, we are being acquired by another search firm in the US. So really exciting times. It's been a interesting journey over the last 6-7 months. A lot of new things that you learn through due diligence and going through that process. But yeah, really exciting. We found a search firm in the US that coincidentally, I was chatting with the COO about a year ago when he was looking for his next move and entertaining a role at Press and Associates. He ended up choosing this other search firm, and we've just been keeping in touch over the last year or so, checking back and forth on how things are going, and ended up that they had an opportunity to combine firms. So it was very serendipitous, but yeah, it's been a great process and should all be ironed out hopefully today.
Wow, that's huge. Congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
Really, really exciting. And like serendipitous that we just happen to be scheduled to record today, that it's all actually, the I's are being dotted and T's being crossed. So are you able to say the name of the company that's acquiring you?
Yeah, so it's a company called Eastwood Partners, and very coincidentally, they do exactly what we do, but they focus on the finance function. So chief financial officers, heads of FP&A, and so on, all in the private equity space. So funnily enough, no crossover on clients really. So we've got a very complementary set of books of business. So there's a lot of cross-selling that I'm sure will be going on in the next few months, and very complementary. So it's exciting times.
That sounds ideal. Same market, but your client bases don't overlap, and also they're doing finance and you're doing technology. So there's a huge opportunity there for you to serve their clients and vice versa. But how did this, was this something you were proactively looking to do, or did it just kind of, was it opportunistic?
Very opportunistic. So funny enough, a rec-to-rec approached me back in, I think it was August, September time of last year, with another deal that I went through the process of. But this COO who joined Eastwood, I've been keeping in touch with him for the last 12, 18 months or so, and we're kind of shooting ideas back and forth, how we're finding the market and so on. So we just kept in touch as I was going through this other deal, which fortunately didn't go through. And it just so happened that he said, "Oh, that's a shame, but out of curiosity, what are your thoughts on joining us? Hopefully this hasn't kind of swayed you away from doing any of these types of deals again." So started having the conversation, obviously told them all about the prior experience and needed transparency throughout, and these are the things that I'm looking for. It just so happened that everything lined up really well. really good culture fit, which is huge. As I said, complementary lines of business. So everything just lined up really nicely, and it all stemmed through Rec to Rec. The actual Rec to Rec who found me the first opportunity is actually affiliated with this Eastwood Partners, so it was very coincidental.
Oh, wow. Let's give them a shout out. Who's the Rec to Rec?
Yeah, this is a guy called Rob White at Tempting Ventures.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, he's awesome. Highly recommend.
Fantastic. All right. So shout out to Rob White. And it's just very unusual for small search firms to be acquired. How did they do the valuation? Because, from what I understand, you really need either a contract or interim or temp book to be an attractive acquisition target, or you have scale and you have like critical mass, right? So that you have enough fee earners doing enough business every month that we're able to forecast what their revenue is going to look like. But with a really small boutique, although the fact that you're retained is obviously that makes you more attractive, and the fact you're a niche specialist also makes you attractive, but you don't really have that forecastable revenue per se, right? So how would they even go about the valuation?
Yeah, so with regards to the valuation, you usually look at kind of your EBITDA or your kind of net income and have a multiplier on that, depending on kind of how sustainable and consistent it is. So that's the kind of usual way, and that's how they valued their business. They've got, I think, 14, 15 people in their business, so it's a little bit larger than kind of the 3 and 4 of us. So interesting enough, in this particular deal, they didn't actually value my business at a specific amount. Essentially, what we talked about was me coming in at partner level, and this is the equity that's available for partners. So we very much aligned it on making sure there was nice balance within the organization. No one kind of had more equity at a certain level than someone else. So it was done very fairly, very evenly. So that's how they did that. But yeah, I'd say usually you need to have that size and scale to have a more kind of accurate kind of multiplier and valuation. So that's what I've seen. I think usually you got to get, I'd say, above 10 million revenue to start getting some consistency in that. Below that, it's very kind of hit and miss with regards to who's doing the valuation, what your book of business looks like, and so on, because it can be pretty inconsistent, pretty lumpy fees. So you're really kind of putting a lot of risk in the owner of that business or the person generating that business. So it can vary quite significantly.
Okay, got it. So this is a kind of deal that only works with you, right, Paul? So basically what they're doing is they're getting you and your team on board, and in exchange for equity. Is that ultimately what it boils down to? Yeah, because you need, so they're not acquiring your business without Paul. They're acquiring Paul and his team and your network and your relationships, basically.
Yeah, because essentially this new business, we've got a 5-year goal to hit certain revenue targets, and me coming in, I've obviously got to prove that I can hit those revenue targets to form one of the pieces of the puzzle, so to speak. So they're very much looking at kind of the value that I can bring, the clients that I can bring with. And it's interesting, there's a lot of M&A activity going on with, I'd say, 3 to 10 kind of people businesses in search over the last, I'd say, 6 months or so. There's been a number of people reaching out to me and peers in the industry, seeing if they can do kind of an acqui-hire or a acquisition type investment to bring them into a bigger firm. So it's becoming more and more common, I think.
Interesting. All right. Thanks for giving us a window into that world, Paul. Listen, there's lots more we could talk about. We're out of time, unfortunately, and but you've got a new chapter starting, so let's keep in touch and potentially do this again
definitely.
once, and you can tell us the next part of the journey.
Yep, sounds like a plan. But thank you very much for having me, Mark. It's been great.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Good luck with the new venture, and excited to hear how that all works out.